Get underway.
All right.
Yeah, sounds good. Yeah, we got a ton of people joining us today. Thank you guys for taking time out of your morning to join us. We got some great content this morning. Thank you, Andrew, for being willing to hop on today and cover an important topic for us today. We appreciate it. As we always do, we're going to start the meeting with our system of beliefs. And I would love to have a few people come off of mute and just give an example of how this has manifested itself, how one of these have manifested itself in your business over the past weeks. Cue the Jeopardy music.
Can you say that again? What are you asking?
Yeah, Monica. So basically, we'd love to start all of our sales meetings by living into our culture, and in order to do that, we don't just want to be an organization that has a system of beliefs, but talks about it and makes it part of our forefront. So I'd love for maybe two or three people to come off of mute and give an example of how one of these 10 beliefs have come out in your life or in your business over the past few weeks.
So how about typically on Zoom, since we know everyone's shy, some of you are in your cars. I'll go ahead and share for the group today so that we can get to our featured presentation of Andrew Ginter, which we know you all are here for. But well said, Bernsey. When it comes to life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, or just the pursuit of your next closing, one of these 10 beliefs for our company is going to guide you. And I think that the one that we will highlight today, as it'll dovetail nicely with what we're going to discuss with Andrew, is communication, which is to seek first to understand. As we're going through an evolving market with evolving rules and evolving paperwork, as we'll talk about today, first of all, kudos to everybody. You've done a great job hitting the curve over the last 12 months. We are literally 12 months and 4 days since the announcement of the NAR settlement, right? And I think the important thing to remember is when you're communicating with your clients, don't bring your energy of what the changes are or the way things are or how things are represented to them. Through strong communication, seek first to understand, where is my client at? What are my client's expectations? How do I serve my client at the highest level? And then deliver that. We want to do it thoroughly and honestly and with integrity and in all the great ways that you all do. But it might be interesting to not just say, well, here's everything that's changed in the last 6 months or 12 months. If they haven't bought a home in 10 years, they might not remember what the changes are. So always seek first to understand on what their expectations are and what they're trying to accomplish, and then deliver on those items. So communication will be the source of or the solution to all of your problems.
Thank you, Michael. Appreciate it. Definitely could have not said it better myself. I'm going to pass it over to Kate to talk about Red Day.
Love that. Thank you. Hard to believe this is only my second Zoom meeting at Greater Metropolitan. So thanks again for hosting me, everybody. If you don't know me, I'm Kate Johnson. I'm the team leader over here at Pepper Pike, and I'm actually going to be handing things over to Miss Amanda Marshall so she can talk to us about all things Red Day.
Hi, everyone. So just a quick update on Red Day. It is coming up on Thursday, May 8th. We'll have multiple charity events across both sides of town. Excuse me. And for those who can't participate during that day, there will be an opportunity to join the evening before. So very good for people who have dual careers. And then afterwards, we'll be hosting an after party at Masthead Brewery again for everyone who participates. We're currently finalizing the times and signups will be available soon. So please keep an eye out for those. Thank you. And we look forward to seeing you all there. Have a great day.
Thanks, Amanda.
Thank you, Amanda.
You're
Thank you,
welcome.
Amanda. Appreciate that. My first year with Keller Williams, I was a dual career agent. So having something the night before, that's pretty awesome. Because my first red day I wasn't able to be a part of because I was at my full-time job. So thank you for that. That's awesome. Coming up tomorrow night at 6 p.m., How to Become a Real Estate Agent, hosted by yours truly, 6 p.m. at the Lakewood office. If you know anyone who is considering a career in real estate, exploring opportunities, or maybe someone who's at a different brokerage who wants to explore opportunities with Keller Williams, this is a great opportunity for you to do some easy recruiting to get somebody at this. Or if you're uncomfortable with it, shoot me a text with their name and number, and I'd be happy to reach out to them on your behalf. So tomorrow night, 6 p.m. at the Lakewood office.
Yeah, I love it. Thanks, Chris. So same thing with Chris. On April 16th, we have career night here at the Pepper Pike office. We are piloting something a little bit different than what we've done in months past. Instead of how to become a real estate agent, we're titling this class 10 things they don't teach you in real estate school. So just like Bernsey mentioned, this is a really great opportunity to reach out to your sphere of realtors you maybe have done a couple deals with, or maybe one deal with at another brokerage. This is perfect for someone that's unlicensed, but this is also perfect for someone that's not doing the business that they want to be doing at a different brokerage. So let me know if there's anyone that should be in that room, or if you are one of our brand new agents and have been in the business less than 12 months, and you just want to know how to kickstart Q2, join me. I'd be happy to host you. We'll have some fun. It's April 16th from 6 to 7 p.m. Muted, Bernsey.
I knew that mute button was going to get me eventually. Thanks, Kate. Appreciate it. I should just stay off mute and keep my mouth shut while you're talking. I just wanted to bring your attention to our April training calendar, which as always is jam-packed full of stuff. Just a couple of things that I would like to highlight that have been impactful for me. Number one, coming up on April 8th is our Q2 kickoff, which Mike's going to talk about here in a couple minutes. But just our group coaching, if you're in need of a mindset shift, or you just stuck in a rut, I have been impacted greatly over the last few months by Wesley's group coaching. It's every Wednesday at 11 a.m. and we're back after Bold next Wednesday. So super pumped about that. So excited to hear about the Q2 kickoff. Kate, I will let you introduce Mike.
Oh man, I was waiting for this slide. This was my favorite slide to introduce. Mr. Rapaski, please.
Yeah. Hey, everybody, remember me? Excited to be a part of this Zoom meeting today. Very excited for Andrew's conversation and everything we're doing as a company to continue to make your life easier, keep you compliant, and keep you out of harm's way when it comes to doing deals and growing your business. I get to talk about the fun stuff though, which is doing deals and growing your business. So we are excited next Tuesday to host our Q2 kickoff at Windows on the River downtown. If you haven't been there, great venue. 7-day forecast says we're going to have awesome weather. It'll be a beautiful day and a beautiful conversation. The day's going to start. Doors open at 9:30. Program starts at 10. And the program's going to start with an update on the real estate industry and our local market. There have been a lot of things in the news in the last 6 months about acquisitions and mergers and private equity. And what does all this mean? And what does it really mean to you as a real estate professional in Northeast Ohio? We're going to drill down into some data points about the markets that we serve and make sure that you are the most well-equipped person that your clients will interact with, remembering that our job as real estate professionals is to be the local economist of choice. And what that means is, how is everything happening in the world impacting the value of your client's home, or how long it takes to sell. Then we're going to highlight a couple of our top agents with some interviews with Shoshana and Matt And they're going to just be talking about how they built their businesses and what their playbooks are to finding the success that they have. And we love the idea of playbooks because we're going to boil it down to a model that you can then go deliver and implement and grow your business just like they've grown theirs. And then finally, we're going to get a playbook from a guy who was featured on the main stage of Family Reunion. So he recently spoke in front of over 10,000 people in Las Vegas back in February. His name's Danny Barron, and he's a part of Gary's Top 100, which is the top 100 agents in the company. And so he gets invited to awesome, super sexy private masterminds with Gary. And he's going to come share his $1 million marketing plan. So he's built a MREA business, a millionaire real estate agent business, based solely off of client events, client giveaways, and just really owning his database and sphere. And he's grown it to the point where he has some events that get literally thousands of past clients or referrals or people in his database to an event. And so it's a massive, massive program that he's going to talk about how he started and how he grew. And then we're going to have a little Q&A with him afterwards. And everybody's going to leave equipped with what they need to do to win the upcoming market, to grow their business, and to fund their perfect life through real estate. Again, really excited about this event. I think it's going to put a lot of energy into our system and some wind in our sails right as we hit what will prove to be the busiest time of the year, which is the kickoff to spring market. So if you have not got your ticket yet, please do. It is at no cost to you as an agent. We just need to know who's coming so we get the right number of croissants and melon set out for everybody, and we have enough seats for all of you and your guests. All right, that's all I have to share today. Come see me, and about 100 other people already signed up for this awesome, awesome event to kick off spring market.
Thanks, Michael. I appreciate it. The next item on the agenda that I am excited to bring up is our next Black Realtor Network event, and I'm going to ask Alexis. You're already off mute. Love it. Ask Alexis Jones to say some highlights about this for us.
Hello, everyone. So our icebreaker event is going to be on April 17th. It's going to be at our Pepper Pike location from 5 to 7 p.m. And we look forward to an evening of connecting, conversations, and community. It's a great chance to meet your fellow KW Brown agents, share your experiences, and also grow your network. So we're looking forward to seeing everyone there.
Thanks, Alexis. I appreciate it. And it's on my calendar. I'm looking forward to being there. And this is the first BRN event that I didn't have a scheduling conflict. So I will see you on the 17th at 5. Looking forward to it.
Thank you.
Perfect. Can't do what we do without who helps us do it. So partner updates. I'll have real title.
Hi, everybody. Back from Punta Cana. So excited that I came to the office today. Yeah. Anyways, whatever. So as Mike said, seek first to understand. I've had a couple of clients now that we're getting in the busy market. I know that David, Sean, and Chris can attest. This is why we're all such good partners. Our goal is to close on the contract date. However, there are snafus, okay? Just so you understand, buyers will receive the clear to close before title is able to work with lenders to get to that closing table, okay? So buyers may get the clear to close from David, Sean, Chris in a couple days ago. Well, the close date isn't for 3 or 4 days out. We still need to get the clear to close documents or the closing docs from their department so we can balance, okay, guys? So just because your buyer has a clear to close doesn't necessarily mean title is ready to go. All right, we may not have the final figures, we may not have balance. So that is just really good to understand and to teach your clients what to expect, that, hey, you may not hear from title until the day or two before your actual close date with the final figures. And then you'll just look like the expert. You can keep everybody calm because at the end of the transaction, everybody's a little nutty anyway. So our job is to maintain that and keep them focused and nice and easy. So that's my update. Thank you, everybody. See you tomorrow, Bold.
Thanks, Janelle. Welcome back. Lovely weather you brought for us from Punta Cana. That's awesome.
You're welcome. Sure. You're welcome.
All right, America's Preferred. Okay, our friends from cross country.
All right, good morning, Sean here. Just giving you a quick update. Interest rates, the trend has been good. Rates kind of gently kind of falling. We had some PCE, kind of an inflation type report last Friday. This coming Friday, we have a big jobs report, and then the first week of May is the next Fed. But right now, the market we're in, from a rate standpoint, it's a gift. Just 60 days ago, we were kind of hanging around 7% and just over. We're certainly sneaking a bit below that. What I want to talk about today are points real quick. So what are points? If someone is paying a 1 point for their mortgage, they're paying an extra fee that's equivalent to 1% of their loan amount. Points aren't necessarily required, and typically we quote interest rates typically with 0 points. But just so you know, the hook out there, we're the number one lender, or number 1, 2, or 3, depending on the given month. But if you look at Chase Mortgage, who's one of the biggest banks in the world, and you go to their webpage and look up interest rates, it has a rate of whatever, 6.5%. And you read the fine print and it says, assuming you're putting 20% down, have a 780 credit score, and are paying 1 point. So the default by a lot of lenders, especially when it's just posted online, is to put in a point. So just be aware of that. I explain that to buyers when they're doing their shopping in comparison, but it's just, oftentimes we get a call from a buyer saying, I don't want to pay points. What are points? So there's an explanation. There's times when it does make sense, and there is a benefit to paying points, but just want to make sure the buyer has that sort of clarification and transparency. DJ?
We're good, Sean.
All right, Chris.
Yeah, talking about shopping online, we see it all the time where our clients are going to look around online. Maybe they're not shopping with another loan officer, but just taking a peek. It's good to know that these advertised rates are just that. They're advertised. You dig into the fine print and you'll find out, oh, this rate requires you to put 40% down, or you need this credit score. So, and there's no, consistency from one advertised rate to the next. So sometimes it can be a big hang up to see, well, I found this online. Okay, well, let me dig in and see what the fine print is. Just warn people to, if they're doing that, kind of come back to us and we'll make sure that the numbers aren't got any hidden figures or anything in there. So
Thanks, everyone.
Love that. Thank you, guys. Leverage Center.
Hi, good morning, everyone. I wanted to mention that yesterday I did send out social media prompt ideas for April if you needed any inspiration for your social media accounts. Also, Easter is on the 20th this year, which gives you plenty of time to set up a touch plan for clients, whether that be a text, call, email, definitely at least post on social media. But please feel free to reach out to me if you have any questions, ideas, and I will see a lot of you a week from today at the Q2 kickoff.
Thanks, Tori.
I just wanted to remind agents that I know I talk about contract to close a lot. However, I also help with listing input. So as the market kind of picks up and you start to get a little bit busier, just please be aware that there's other services that I provide, such as listing input. I can also write contracts. So if you're out and too busy, because you've got 10 showings and you need to get the offer in because, highest and best is at 8 tonight, please reach out to me and we'll figure out what I can do to help you and make sure that you can get, your full business done.
Perfect. Thanks, Liz. Thanks, ladies. And Keller Home Loans.
Good morning, everybody. A lot of changes, obviously, in the industry in Washington. One of the things that came up this week was the end to special purpose financing programs. And what those are programs designed to give grants, down payment assistance for lower income borrowers. They've been completely eliminated. So a lot of the well-known programs that people have been using, from Rocket, United Wholesale Mortgage, Bank of America, Wells Fargo, on and on. Those are now over. So obviously creates a challenge for a lot of buyers that are needing assistance to help get into homes. Fortunately, the Keller Assist program was unaffected. So we can still offer 100% financing on an FHA loan with an additional up to an additional 1.5% towards closing costs. And the great part of our program, there's no income restrictions, no first-time home buyer restrictions, no geographic or employment restrictions. So pretty much if you qualify for an FHA loan, you can qualify for Keller Assist and purchase with zero out of pocket. I closed one on Wednesday. The buyer, it was about a $360,000 price home. The buyer got their entire earnest money deposit back at closing. So
Love that.
reach out if you need help.
Thanks, David.
Yep.
Thanks all of our partners.
I don't know if you guys are seeing the thread of communication flowing through our meeting today, but I'm so glad that Michael highlighted communication as our belief that we did today, right? Like with title, setting expectations with your clients, with closing costs, for mortgage advertisements that they're going to see, setting expectations that it's not always what you see, what you get, right? Communicating our leverage sender, continuing to communicate with us and to our clients through us. So I just love that. So, and again, with David, making sure our clients understand everything that's still available to them. So seeking first to understand, that's really awesome how it's kind of weaving its way through our meeting today. So next up, Mr. Andrew Ginter with our keynote, our meeting keynote talk. Andrew, if you want to come off of mute for the broker update today, upcoming changes to our listing agreement. So thanks, Andrew, for coming on today. We appreciate it.
All right. Yeah, I'm here and ready. So what I'll let the cat out of the bag at the very beginning here and then kind of talk about what we're going to get through. What we're going to talk about here is moving away from broker shared commissions across the board. And what I mean by that is the difference of us sharing commission that we charged versus the seller offering commission potentially, and also on the buy side, us being paid by the seller as opposed to by a listing broker. I'll get into the technicalities of that towards the end. I want to start with just kind of some frame of reference as to why we're doing what we're doing, because I think understanding the purpose of this is what's important as opposed to just understanding the mechanics of it. The mechanics of it are pretty easy. The purpose of it is much more important. Can we move a slide? Okay. All right. So I want to talk about kind of the letter of the law of the settlement that Mike pointed out was almost exactly a year ago, versus the spirit of it. I want you guys to, I assume most of you guys on this call were around 1 year ago. And think back to what went on last spring and last summer. You know, there was these announcements were rolling out kind of slowly over time as like one large broker after the next was settling, and then the NAR settlement happened, which became kind of the law of our land in the short run, right? Because that was like the thing that everybody now had to abide by, regardless of what broker you were at. And remember back to like, at first there was, kind of like the stages of grief. Like at first everybody was all freaked out and everybody thought, well, how am I ever going to make any money selling a house to a buyer again? If I have to get the buyer to agree to pay me, like that's never going to happen. I'll never even be able to get them to sign an agreement that says they might have to pay me. And then the second fear was, not having commissions in the MLS. Like, what does that even mean? How do I know what's going to happen when I show a property? And it was as though like it was going to be totally impossible to figure this out, right? Because those were two pieces on one side of the business, on the buyer side of the business, that like, we all did things a very specific way, and we all understood the path forward. And needing a buyer's agreement and not understanding what commission was or was not available created these two hurdles that we were like completely scared of at first, right? And then kind of the next evolution of that was everybody started thinking about kind of what am I going to do to make it so things are actually kind of just the same, right? Like where's like the little loophole? Where's the thing that I can split the hairs on what this actually says, we're required to do and figure out ways that we can still basically do the same thing. I can remember conversations being had even on meetings like this, as well as individually, where, you know, we were doing exactly that, talking about like, okay, you know, if we do it this way, it really doesn't feel any different. So we can be comfortable with that and we can move forward. And that hair splitting turned into, I was thinking yesterday about some of the things that actually turned into. And the first thing that popped in my mind was that nationwide MLS that's been, you know, trying to get off the ground for a long time and never really has. And the woman who runs that is in Florida, and she is not a realtor. I'm not even sure if she has a license, truthfully, but she's definitely not a realtor. So her big sales pitch to the entire marketplace was, brokers, come join my MLS and you can post commissions all day long because I'm not a realtor. So on my site, it doesn't matter. And then there were agents setting up phone numbers where an agent could call and it would just run down the list of all their listings and the commission being offered. And they'd put that phone number in the MLS. Just thinking of ways to like circumvent what the letter of the law now said to us as far as what we could do. And in the end, like a lot of that, we kind of like missed the boat on what actually needed to happen. Because that hair splitting kind of like completely disengaged with the idea that once that settlement came into existence, like we were like a teenager with a house arrest ankle bracelet on at that point, where like we were going to be watched for a long time. And we were just treating it like, oh, we can still do whatever we want as long as it follows the letter of the law. And the plaintiff's attorneys made it very clear that they were going to watch and pay attention and make sure that the things that had been agreed to created the outcome that was supposed to be created, meaning the practice changes that were put in place, did those actually generate the outcome that the spirit of the settlement was supposed to cause, right? So the idea that we're going to split hairs and not necessarily get to the spirit of the law, but rather just the letter of it, we were shooting ourselves in the foot kind of right out of the gate. And unfortunately, there's still one piece of that hair splitting happening at our brokerage, which is sharing commissions between brokers. So that's not going to happen anymore as of the end of this month. This is kind of stage one of us talking about that. So we've got 30 days to roll this out and make sure everybody's totally comfortable with it, totally understands it. Again, from both like a philosophical level as well as the mechanics of what we're doing with documents and how that affects our conversations with buyers and sellers. So I'm going to talk about the two primary reasons that this is happening. So if we can move to the next slide. All right. So antitrust concerns is first and foremost. That was what we got nailed to the wall over. So that's by far the biggest concern. And the primary argument of the Sitzer case last year was that contractually agreeing to commissions ahead of time created a conspiracy that kept commissions artificially high. We can agree or disagree with that. Doesn't really matter what we feel at this point because it's already been decided in a court. So we can say that that's not the case. That's fine. Doesn't really matter at this point. But the idea that we're gonna this was all at the MLS level was the original thought about it was that the compensation rule in the MLS that said that there had to be compensation in the MLS for every listing inputted, even if it was a penny. That was the basis of the argument. But now let's just move that down one level. We were up here where all brokers were contractually obligated to pay each other when it was in the MLS. Now out of the MLS, if we've got agreements with our sellers that say, this is how much commission I'm going to offer out of the commission I charged you, that's still a predetermined contractual obligation that we are going to pay a set amount of commission to a buyer's agent if they show up and sell that listing. So while it's not as significant as being in the MLS, like to some extent, it smells pretty similar from like a conspiracy creation standpoint, from an antitrust standpoint. So that's reason number one. Reason number two, we can get the next slide. This is all in regards to steering. So steering obviously is not an antitrust issue, but was kind of a secondary issue that was discussed in both the lawsuit as well as the DOJ. DOJ has said this since before the Sitzer case. There's another case that's been going on much longer that I'm sure is not on most people's radar, that is with MLS PIN, which is kind of a smallish or medium-sized MLS in, I believe, Massachusetts, if I remember right, or maybe Maryland. I can't remember now. But at any rate, where that's the one where anything you've seen in the news where the DOJ is making a statement, that's regarding the MLS PIN settlement. And that's where the DOJ has consistently said, separating commissions that are paid to buyer's agents from the seller side is important because of steering. One of the primary arguments made in the Sitzer case, as well as the MLS PIN case, has been that understanding what commissions are on listing A versus listing B versus listing C causes the opportunity for agents to want to show and sell the ones paying the highest commissions. And I think most agents say like, oh, that doesn't happen. However, it's funny because when we are talking to a seller or we're on the listing side and we say, well, we can't do it for that low of a commission because we're not going to be able to offer hardly anything to a buyer's agent. Like, to some extent, that's exactly what we're saying. We're saying that if we offer a 1% commission to buyer's agents, nobody's going to come and sell your listing. So the idea that we say we're not steering and then we tell sellers that exact thing certainly feels like that we believe that happens. Maybe we don't do it, but we believe other people do. I don't know. But so that's the secondary issue. So by us kind of like stepping away from that, by not sharing our commission, we're going to talk about sellers paying buyers in a second, but by us not sharing our commission, then we're not participating in something that can cause an opportunity for steering that's ultimately both bad for us and bad for our industry as a whole. So those are the two primary reasons that we're doing this. And like I said, not participating on both sides. We're talking primarily about listings today because that's the place where the mechanics matter a little more. We'll talk about the buyer side, in the coming weeks as well, though. Let me go next slide. All right, so the next two slides are the current listing agreements that we have. So you are using one of these two listing agreements, and one conversation I've had with a number of agents over the last, how long has it been? Maybe 6 or 7 months that we've had the separate listing agreements is some agents are confused as to the semantics of these agreements and which one is even which. So this listing agreement is the listing agreement that is a commission sharing agreement. It's a listing agreement that's very similar to the listing agreement we were using a year ago, 5 years ago, 15 years ago. And it basically says, you see right there in the listing commission section, we like the second or third paragraph heading there on the first page, where we are charging a commission, and then down 2 paragraphs below, we are offering part of that commission to a buyer's broker. So this is the listing agreement that's going to be going away. So that's why I wanted to show this one and the other one to give you to, hopefully you guys recognize this and it either is or is not the one you're currently using, and you can tell that by looking at it. If we could move to the next listing agreement, is this one I want to talk a little bit more about. Okay, so this is what we call currently the split commission listing agreement. I know a lot of you might be trying to look hard at this, and it's small, but the key, again, for the purposes of what we're looking at here, the key of what we're I see in the comments, Christina says, can't see your screen. Are you guys seeing a copy of a listing agreement? Because this should be Carrie sharing her screen, I believe. Okay, cool. All right, people can see it. So in this listing agreement, if this is foreign to you and you have not been using it, I want to explain a few things mechanically how it's different. Like I said, in the other one, we charge an amount of commission, and then we offer a buyer's broker an amount of that commission to a buyer's broker. And in this listing agreement, that listing commission section is only talking about what you're going to get paid as a listing agent. So if your goal is to get paid 3.5% of the sale price as a listing agent, you wouldn't put 6 in here or 7 in here and then 2.5 or 3.5 in the buyer section. You would put 3.5 because that's how much you're going to get paid to represent the seller. Now, there is 2 spots for listing commission in that line. The second part is for unrepresented buyers. So in a scenario where you're the only agent and you don't have a buyer's agreement with the buyer, meaning you're not a dual agent, in that scenario, you could charge a different listing commission if you so choose. So again, that may mean that you say, okay, I'm charging 3.5% to represent you as the seller, and if the buyer's unrepresented, it's going to be 4.5% or 5.5%, whatever number you want it to be. But that's the scenario where you're not representing the buyer and no other agent is as well. So that's designed to, previously, if you're using the shared commission agreement, then if you're charging 6 and there's no other agent involved, theoretically, like you're getting all 6 of those points, or whatever version you choose to reduce it to, if you're reducing it at all, if you're the only agent involved. So listing commission line, just about what you're getting paid. Then down below, so you see there's a protection period there, and then the next line, I know you might not be able to read that, but what that next line is saying there is it's the seller authorizing you to offer a commission that they're willing to pay. It's not a commission coming out of what you've charged. It's a commission the seller's authorizing you that they're willing to pay a buyer's broker. So I know it may sound like semantics, but that is a very different scenario than us contractually agreeing with a seller, I'm going to charge X and offer Y. Because in that scenario, once you've done that in a listing agreement, that's what you have to do. You can't, just because an agent has a buyer's agreement that says something different, do something different. When that happens, you have to change it with the seller. So you're kind of predetermining a commission amount, which again is back to the antitrust problem that I talked about a couple of minutes ago. So now it's the seller offering it instead of us offering it. So that's the primary difference between these two. Now, I want to talk for a second about something that is not going to be company policy, at least at the moment, and may never be, I don't know. But this is more just personal to me, and I think valuable. You can take it for what it is. So more so on the steering front, and also just on the seller representation front. I'm not so sure that putting any number other than 0 in that buyer brokerage commission section makes a whole lot of sense. Like I said, first on the steering front, I think we're potentially still causing that same problem by saying, hey, my seller's willing to offer a 3% commission to buyers brokers, and then going out and emailing agents and calling people and putting it on Facebook, doing whatever it is that you're doing to market an amount of commission your seller's willing to pay. I think is potentially problematic for the purposes of steering. And secondarily, I'm not so sure that it helps your seller in any way at all. Think about when you're on the buyer side for a minute and you have an agreement with a buyer's agent or with your client who's a buyer at 3%. If you're calling agents to find out if they're offering commission, if that number is less than 3%, do you care? Are you changing the amount that you're going to write your offer? If your buyer says I don't want to pay the commission, I want the seller to pay it, you don't really care, I don't think. I think you're still writing in 3% on your offer, even if you talk to the agent and the agent said the seller's willing to pay a 2% commission. So I don't think it matters, for one. And I think secondarily, it would be no different than a seller putting right in the public remarks, willing to offer a $10,000 allowance to replace carpet. Every buyer under the sun is going to expect a $10,000 credit somehow, right? And maybe you didn't even need it. You could equate it to cars. I don't know if anybody ever pays attention to this, but like there's never a sale on heavy duty trucks because there doesn't need to be a sale. Like the people who are going to show up and buy those are going to buy those, whether the interest rate's 6% or 7% or 5%, whether there's a deal against the MSRP price or not. So like the reason that that car lot makes deals on some of those cars is because they have to in order to sell them. So not always sure why it's important to be offering something that you may or may not need to pay, depending on what that buyer is or isn't going to do. I see a question in the chat, and I assume my thoughts about this might generate some questions. So I'd love to actually have people unmute if they have some questions. I see, are you saying buyers brokers are not going to be paid? Not at all. What I'm saying is I don't think buyers agents care what is or isn't being offered. They've already got an agreement with their buyer as to how much they're going to get paid. So all I'm saying is I don't think we're necessarily serving our seller by going out and marketing something and offering anything, because we're gonna get offers based on what buyers want to write and how they want their agent to be paid, whether they want to pay them or they want the seller to pay them. So like,
So
is
we
there
should
any
just
point
write.
showing those cards?
Oh,
Go ahead.
sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off. So we should just write TBD essentially, and just whatever
Well,
the buyer's agent or
in that scenario,
is.
I mean, if you're not going to offer anything, you would write 0, because what
Oh, okay.
that line is actually saying is the seller's authorizing you to market X.
Oh, okay.
So you would just write, they would just say, I'm
Oh, okay.
not authorizing you to
Okay,
market
gotcha.
anything.
That makes sense. Okay.
Yeah.
Does zero
So
still
and
leave
the
it?
0
We're
doesn't mean
leaving it negotiable, correct? I mean, if the seller's negotiable on it and they want to see it in an offer, I had a seller who wanted to see the request in the offer. He didn't want to specifically offer anything, or we weren't advertising that he is offered anything. But once he started getting offers, and he wanted to negotiate based on the what the offers are.
Negotiable and 0 would be the same thing.
Okay, thanks.
Because 0 isn't because again, this document isn't obligating the seller to anything, the contract, right? So putting a number in there also doesn't mean they have to pay, but not putting a number in there doesn't mean that they're not going to pay any commission either.
Got it.
So it just doesn't matter. And I think it's interesting that as an industry, we've kind of decided to look at these things totally differently. Like the way we act with a buyer and the way we act with a seller, we've decided, like, on the buyer side, we don't care. And on the seller side, we think every buyer's agent cares. Like, you guys, for the most part, are all both of these people. So you know how you feel on one side. So why do you think it would matter on the other? And like I said, I think there's some possibility that offering something in some cases could be damaging. So I think it just doesn't make sense. Again, we're not making this a policy, and I will tell you why. I don't think it's our job with our forms to stop a seller from doing something they want to do that is not illegal. So there's nothing illegal about a seller offering a commission amount. And I don't think it's a great idea, but our clients do things that we don't think are a great idea all the time. So I think if a seller says, like, hey, like, I've heard about all this stuff, I've read some things about it, I think it's really important that my listing be clear about the fact that we're willing to pay a buyer's broker's commission of X. You say, okay, like, I've got some reasons why I don't think it matters, but if that's something that's really important to you, we can do it. So that's the reason we're not taking it out altogether. Because I think it seems weird for us to limit what a seller would like to do, especially if it's a completely legal thing. So
I have a question on moving forward with pricing a home. So just to make it easy, let's say from up to 2022, you price out a home at 500,000. You priced it out taking into consideration 6% as a commission to be split however we did it before. That's $30,000 in value. So moving forward now, how is an appraiser going to know if the commissions were included in the price or if the buyer, paid them separately? I think on the higher end houses, this could make a huge difference.
I mean, I think it's unreasonable to say that commissions on every sale were 6% because they weren't. So I don't know that that's. I mean, I've been a part of transactions where the commission changes during the transaction, let alone part of transactions where the commission definitely wasn't 6%. So I get what you're saying. I think some of that's around the edges because it doesn't go from 6 to 0. So the $30,000 difference you're talking about is probably less than that. And I will say that there's a possibility. I'm not. It's been discussed. I don't know that it's going to go anywhere. Of changing the numbers that are tracked on closed listings in the MLS. There's some concern about whether that's legal or not. But I think it is helpful for exactly this, where you've got, in one sale happened in a neighborhood at, 375. And in that sale, the seller paid a total of X towards buyer's expenses. And that could be closing costs, commissions. It could be any number of things. Right now we basically just have a closing cost field. But that number wouldn't be specified as to what it was. It wouldn't say that it was just commissions or just closing costs. It would just be seller paid costs on buyer's behalf, right? And that's it. And again, it's just a matter of determining whether or not that's legal or not, because the issue with, tracking what commissions were, if that's what that amounts to, is basically saying, well, if that's what they were, then that's what they are. And so that becomes potentially an issue, but we've been working through that. I agree with you. I think that would be valuable to have that information, both as an agent pricing a house and an appraiser, because there easily could be a 2 or 3% swing. And, even at our average sale price in Cuyahoga County, which I believe is not that far under 300, a 3% swing is $8,000. So that's real money. So I agree with you, and I don't have a great answer.
Perfect. Thank you.
I think this was like kind of an unintended consequence of this process, truthfully, because it was one of the first things that we talked about at the MLS. It's one of the first things I thought about was, how are we going to gauge? Like I sold a house in Berea 2 months ago where the buyer paid the commission. So the house was listed for 270 something and it transferred for 250. But my client paid a $9,000 commission. So it didn't really sell for 250. It sold for like 260. But there's currently no way to track that everybody is clear about being legal.
Just to respond to Allison's questions for appraisers, I really think that appraisers feel that when a house is priced appropriately because of who the agent is, who the brokerage is. And on the other side, I have gotten phone calls over the last, I'd say 3 or 4 years from appraisers that are saying, hey, Polly, I'm working on something in the neighborhood that you sold a house 6 months ago, 9 months ago, or whatever. Can you specifically tell me, was there any closing costs or any concessions from the seller on this one? And I'll say yes, no, whatever. So I think that due diligence is on the appraiser, whether he wants to look into that further. And the only thing that I still worry about is if I'm pricing my house correctly and showing up when that appraiser comes to my listing, just being armed in case, not feeding them information, just knowing why I priced the house the way I did when I listed it. But those appraiser phone calls have been increasing over the last 4 years, and I will gladly take those phone calls. And I think that's an onus on the appraisers.
Yes, and I think most appraisers do that. especially when they see things that are odd, right? So if in the same neighborhood, two very similar houses sold for 5 or 6 points apart from each other, I think that's a time when an appraiser is definitely going to call and say, like, what happened here? How come this sold for so much, or how come this sold for so little? Like, was there anything strange? Like, I've gotten that call a number of times as well. I think whoever's on this call that gets the most listings probably gets that call the most. So yeah.
Hey, Andrew, I have two quick questions. When you were talking before, you mentioned something about having to go back and change the listing agreement if, say, you put 0 or you put negotiable, and then you have to change it.
No. The only one you change is the broker to broker one, the broker shared commission one. If you're using this one, there's nothing to change.
Okay, so with the new one, we can write negotiable and purchase agreement, escrow letters take precedence.
Yeah, because the only commission that's being contractually agreed to in the split commission agreement is the listing commission.
Okay.
So, and that's already determined up at the top, and those would all be real numbers, because that's how much they're agreeing to pay you to hire you.
Okay. Other question is, you were talking before about the steering and how, agents only want to show and sell the listings with the highest commissions. What about the fact that, we're instructed to tell our buyers if we know whether or not a commission's being paid, and the buyers actually are the ones who are making the choice if they want to go see that listing or not, because maybe they can't afford to pay your 3% or whatever percent commission that you agreed to in your buyer agency agreement and told them that, we're going to do our best to negotiate this. But at the end of the day, it's your choice if you don't want to go look at the home.
Yeah, I mean, I think that runs steering right into a fair housing problem. Is kind of the next level of that. So it's kind of the same thing, but from a different angle. But honestly, like I said before, when you're on the buyer side and they say this is how much commission we're offering, you don't need to care. It makes no difference. You can still write an offer that says whatever you want it to say, and that seller can agree with that, disagree with it. They can counter it, they can reject it. You can. That's all part of the process of negotiating now. So, like, when you get a listing agent telling you, this is the commission we're offering, that's it. This is not reality.
Andrew, can I jump in real quick?
Yeah. Who do we got there?
So if you put 0 or negotiable in a buyer broker compensation on a listing agreement, it's probably still best to, at least talk to your seller and say, hey, there's a very good chance that the buyer or the buyer's agent is going to want to be compensated, and they'll write that in their offer.
Absolutely.
So to avoid saying, yeah, we'll leave that negotiable, and to think that your seller client may just end up paying the listing commission. And when they get the offer, it's a listing commission plus whatever the buyer agent asks. And the trend I noticed is end of last year, when this all started, all of my listings, before realtors would show it, I was always getting that call, like, how much you offer it.
Yeah.
In the last 3 or 4 months, those calls have stopped, and I'm just getting offers with commission filled out with what the agent's asking for. And then that's what I'm presenting.
I think we've all discovered it doesn't really matter. And it's taken us, 6 months to get to that, or not even 6 months, 4 months to get to that place.
So buyer's agents just stopped asking, sending offers. I'm like, okay, I can present that. And then I stopped calling and asking. I'm just writing an offer and presenting that. If there's a correction, then the listing agent will correct at the time that I present an offer.
Yeah, it can get negotiated just like a price or a seller concession for closing costs, where stuff gets lined out in initial, just like anything else in the agreement. You can that stuff's just as flexible, and that's what I think agents have discovered. And so now I think, like, the final piece of discovery of that is realizing that means commission offerings don't matter. It's kind of the last thing to be discovered, I think.
So if you're writing your commission in 3.5% and you write negotiable in the next space, then you're just setting up for the buyer's agent to ask for the piece of commission that they want, which they're doing. So it then becomes a negotiation between the seller and what they're willing to pay the buyer's agent, just like we've been doing since this thing kind of started, just in a different paperwork structure, correct?
Yeah, I mean, here's the thing. Like, think back, Monica. I think you've been doing this long enough. I don't recall when you started, but I think long enough to remember the days when like almost every deal had buyer closing costs on it.
Yeah, exactly.
So remember back to like the way you'd talk about that with a seller. You know, you'd say like, okay, like on this offer, like they offered X, they're asking for $6,000 in closing costs. So really, like their offers here.
Yeah.
Right. You know, so it's the same thing. So could a seller counter an offer with just a commission change? Yeah. They could also counter it and say, like, here's our net. Like, we're willing to do this deal at 305. And right now, with the commission you wrote in, we're at 299. So, like, if you want to keep that commission the way it is, then our counter's 311. If you guys want to reduce your commission and do it at 305, it's 305. Like, put the ball in their court. That I mean, they can do whatever they want, as long as you guys all agree. Like, hey, raising the price is not going to be detrimental as far as appraisal or anything like that. But I mean, that just that's just as it's a lot like the conversation we used to have around buyer closing costs on every deal.
Right. Okay.
Yeah.
Hey, Andrew, it's Melanie.
Yeah.
Can I just jump in with something? Exactly what you were talking about, that sellers should be mostly, they should be concerned with their net, not what the buyer's agent is being paid. And so for me, the spirit of this is that sellers are not supposed to be determining what I'm getting paid as a buyer's agent. And so, as a buyer's agent, I just write in whatever's in my buyer's agreement, right? Which I think everyone's saying is the way to go, and it's most likely working every time. But the notion that sellers should be negotiating my commission as a buyer's agent is the antithesis of this entire change of practice. So just go back with raise the sale price, right? Don't negotiate with what the buyer's agent is asking for, negotiate the sale price.
Yeah.
Just my 2 cents.
Yeah, that certainly works. I think the only scenario where that gets sticky is, like I said, if the seller has any concerns about an appraisal problem, and in that scenario, I think putting it in the buyer's agent's lap and saying, hey, here's the deal. Like, you guys, skin this however you want, but like we're willing to put in a total of X to pay for like buyer things, and this is our number to do that. If you want to raise the sale price, we'll put in more than X. But like, and that's just a conversation. It's not a matter of like countering this piece versus that piece, but rather just countering the whole ball of wax.
And the only time that would be affected is if the appraisal was short.
Yeah.
Raise the price, the appraisal comes in short. Now you got to negotiate some other scenario.
Yeah, and here's the thing. I don't remember a time in 2018 when agents' commissions weren't on the line when an appraisal came in a little short. So, I mean, that's not new. Agents have thrown money into deals to get them done since the beginning of realtors. So that's not weird.
I think that the entire genesis of this is just your conversation with the seller. I created a seller's estimated net sheet like 15 years ago. And that conversation with money may be hard for some people, but it's so necessary for the sellers because you have commissions, you have taxes, you have everything in there. Throw in the kitchen sink. But this tool is so fantastic for negotiating, and they get to see the vision of, if we pay 1% and flip it, if somebody is asking 1% and you pay this, this is what this seller's net looks like for you. If somebody is asking 2%, this is what this seller's net looks like for you. They know that before you've ever listed the house, and they've signed this exclusive right to sell agreement, and they're comfortable with it because they already have those numbers. So I think it reverts back to having open conversations about money with the sellers, because it's so important to them what's going into their pocket, not really what they're paying out, but what's coming into their pocket. And then fast forward, when you're negotiating, you can pull this tool out and say, hey, they're asking for prepaid closing costs that we talked about, like 6%. This is what this number looks like. And then, like Andrew said, it's just a line item in the terms of the purchase offer that you can accept, reject, or counter. Like there's no different than what's always went on.
Yeah, I think what you started with, Polly, is the key. It's what Mike started us off with, which was communication. I think specifically around expectations, which is also what Jeff touched on earlier. I think our 100% of our job is based on setting good expectations for our clients. So
I have something. It's just interesting. We having this conversation because that happened to me with a seller, and basically, like, I don't know who said it. At the end of the day, is what the seller's net is. When he got the offer over the other day, the commission was wrote in there, and he said, whatever we agreed to on the listing agreement, he said, you take care of that. And so that's basically like given to the buyer, because, you send over the paperwork, he's looking at it. They're concerned about their bottom number. And when you have that conversation up front, when you're sitting there with them, going over, this is what the buyer's going to get, they don't care. They care about you price their house properly, and that net is what they're looking for. And the open conversation, I remember early on, Andrew, you said, don't even ask what my commission is if you write a contract for a buyer. Just write it up. And that happened twice this weekend with a listing negotiating from my side, and I had a buyer on a deal. And I went back to the agent and said, this is what you're giving on this price home. Can we get this? She said, let me see. No problem. And it was solved. It's like just the communication, the upfront conversation just makes it much more simpler, I think.
Yeah. So, well, cool. We're just a few minutes after 10:30. So I want to wrap up here. But anybody that's got questions, want to talk about this more, certainly feel free to reach out to me directly, but also be on the lookout. There's going to be another handful of created spaces here for us to get together, either on Zoom or in person this month, just to make sure everybody's clear on what we're doing moving forward, because starting on May 1st, that's going to be the place we're at. So I want to make sure everybody's ready for it, since it's 30 days out from now.
Just really quick, is that in that loop, that agreement? It's
right now, both agreements are in .loop, and on May 1st, only this one will be.
Okay, and the one that has the two different spaces for the commission.
There's only two in there. There's the one that's on the screen right now, and the broker to broker shared commission.
So don't use the broker to broker shared commission. Is that
don't use an agreement that says you're going to charge X and offer Y out of X. Use the agreement that says, here's what I'm charging. And then down below, here's a place where if you want to offer something, I can do that for you. And here's where you're authorized me to do it. But again, back to the last part of this conversation, I think it would be best if everybody get real comfortable with the idea of not offering anything at all. And if you're wrestling with that and haven't spoke up because you don't feel comfortable, that's totally fine. Let's you and I talk about it offline. And I'm again, we're keeping this primarily so that sellers have the opportunity to do it, because I think it's odd for us to strip sellers of that right if they feel
negotiable like and let the sellers deal with it when the offer comes in.
Yeah,
that's what I'm thinking. Okay. All right, cool.
So okay, awesome. Well, everybody, thanks so much for being here. I'm glad we had a good group, because I always fret with how hard it is to get as many years as I can on topics like this. So I'm really excited, everybody. We had so many people on here today. So that's all for now. Feel free to reach out if you have more questions. I will talk to you guys later.
Thanks, Andrew.
Thank